Where does this meh mound of mediocrity land? Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
Vince, we'll start with you. What is your rating of Ghost Rider on the trusty old Cageometer, starting with the movie?
So, God, I had seen this movie a good amount of times before because I had an ex that was really obsessed with Nicolas Cage, funny enough. And it was one of the movies that she liked to watch.
I can't imagine why.
I couldn't.
It's those abs, man.
It's those abs. But I honestly couldn't tell you a single scene from the film, having seen it probably at least 5 times. I mean, that's like a minimum prior to rewatching it. And I just like have this vague memory of not really liking it, but rewatching it, it's not as bad as it was in my head. So I got to give it a 5 out of 10. I say it's kind of middle of the road. It has some fun moments. The plot was a mess. I mean, we don't got to drag into that anymore that we already did, breaking this down. But like it was fun at points. You know, Sam Elliott and Nic Cage interacting together was always fun to watch. I thought that brought some levity to it. Like we talked about, you know, this at the time the CGI was groundbreaking. Although it doesn't hold up entirely, I have a huge appreciation for how much work they put into it, knowing a little more behind the scenes stuff. So, you know, putting all that together and give it a 5, you know, it's kind of middle of the road, not great, not awful, because God, we've seen some awful films, Dog Eat Dog. Even though I still love that movie, I think it's just a fun, dumb movie. It's not a good movie.
I feel like that's a theme throughout the entire show so far, is like, we've enjoyed every single one of these movies in their own way. They're all great.
Right.
But you have to rate it honestly of like, okay, is this an amazing movie or is this a terrible movie?
Because like, you know, having watched films like Manti and Color Out of Space and some of the and Vampire's Kiss, like we've watched some really good movies, right? So I give it a 5, middle of the road. As far as Nick, same. I give him a 5. I felt like he just kind of it was weird because I thought he'd be more invested in this given the situation. You know, he's always wanted to do a big budget comic book movie, and he finally gets one, and I just kind of felt like he didn't really know how to play the character, and it was like you said, his accent's in and out, and he just didn't really add a lot of depth to the character, I felt. So I gotta give him a 5 on that one. I feel like I was expecting more from him, having rewatched this film, knowing his love for comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've definitely talked about it a lot so far on this show. I mean, he literally took his stage name from Marvel Comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, you would think he would have had a lot more...
Especially because he's got the tattoo. Like,
yeah,
I didn't even
he's
know
got
that.
a Ghost Rider
he
tattoo.
He liked Ghost Rider enough to have a tattoo prior to doing this movie.
Years prior to doing this movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nigel, where do you rate Ghost Rider on your Cageometer?
I had never seen this before. I was expecting it to be god awful based on my own impressions of it. When it first came out, I had no desire to see it because I didn't like Nicolas Cage at the time, and also like it was just a third tier comic character that I didn't know anything about, didn't care to see it. So I was pleasantly surprised that there were parts of it that I enjoyed a lot more than I expected to do. I really liked the action with Ghost Rider. I thought it was a faithful recreation of his power set and how he looks and acts in the movies or comics. I'm sorry, and how he just the way the visuals looked pretty good. We've talked about it. They were surprisingly competent for a movie, although the budget was fairly high, and we have Nic Cage to thank for that, increasing the budget to make it look good.
Still was 14 years ago. You know, it was a long time ago. In terms of CGI, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, so I think they used it pretty well. They showcased his skills against Earth, Wind, and Failure, but it was kind of a letdown because like he didn't really, you know, he didn't have to do a whole lot of cool action with him. He just sort of did stuff and then they died. So I wish that we'd been able to see more of that, more Ghost Rider action. Story's horrible. Like it's just all over the place. If it wasn't for Sam Elliott and Nic Cage's performance and Peter Fonda, even, who was also underutilized, I think it would have been completely unwatchable because Eva Mendes's acting is god awful. Her character's one dimensional. Their love story is really stupid. The comic relief Mac character is just annoying and doesn't really add anything to it. But Yeah, so that part was really bad. The villains are terrible, like we've said. Blackheart is probably the worst comic villain I've seen in any of these movies. Hands down.
Yeah.
And then his 3 henchmen were just nothing. They were nothing terrible characters. They weren't even menacing. They were laughable. And again, like we've established, their plan doesn't make any sense, and the overall storyline is just kind of messy and gross. So all that said, I will give it a 5 out of 10 as well, because I enjoyed the Ghost Rider aspects of it. It wasn't a complete loss of a watching experience. I did enjoy how they adapted certain aspects of Ghost Rider into it. And as for Nic Cage himself, I don't really think that he brought a whole lot to this character, which we've just said is really puzzling considering how much he seems to like the character. I don't know how much of it was his performance versus what the director wanted him to do. He tends to have a little more freedom on these things to portray the characters how he actually wants to, and I just think it was kind of a miss. Like, he just sort of fuddles along with a lot of this stuff. So there wasn't much that I really thought he brought to it, to the role, to put his own spin onto it. It's kind of a weird direction to take Johnny Blaze, I think. Having read some of at least the older Johnny Blaze comics, he doesn't really act like a childish, immature guy that he does in this movie, like a lovable, kind of goofball, like he kind of is in this.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird that he chose to take that direction with it, and I think it was kind of a miss. So 5 out of 10 as well for Cage's performance. So just sort of middle of the road, almost bad across both of them.
Yeah. I also gave it a 5. It was funny. We all kind of arrived at that separately, but I feel like, the strong points of the movie, I thought Peter Fonda was actually really great in the scenes that he was in. And like you said, he was kind of underutilized. I wish he would have been the bad guy because I feel like he was so much more commanding in his scenes and had so much more like presence. He just was menacing, and he was cool, and he was not over the top and lame, and he was just interesting. Whereas the actual villains are just the worst, man. Just the worst. The 3 fallen angels, like you said, were defeated in seconds flat. All 3 of them. And I'm like, I guess it was like, you put so much, like there's 14 minutes of young Johnny, which felt like too much. And then you spent all this time on all of the other stuff. And I get it, like, okay, it costs a lot of money to have Ghost Rider on screen and to have him fight these, crazy creatures who are also CGI the whole time. But like even just their look was stupid. Yeah. I mean, everything about them was lame. I mean, it was just like stupid costumes, stupid looks on their faces the whole frickin' time, stupid powers, annoying everything they did. They're mean mugging and over the top in every scene that they're in. And like the Rastafarian dude, the wind guy, like the dumbest wig I've ever seen on like a bad guy. And it looked like he just drew on a frickin' mustache. He just looked terrible the whole time.
Yeah, it was bad.
No, and like that's not even getting to Wes Bentley's performance as Blackheart, which is like, okay, let's take away, nothing about the comics at all. You don't even know what Blackheart is. He's still just the most wimpy, stupid, lame character ever. Like he has like maybe a couple of seconds where his like complete like over the top cockiness through the whole thing, he only has like a couple of seconds where he actually backs that up, even when he's Legion, like he's supposed to be the most powerful demon ever. Even then he's still just like wimpy and gets, like his like thing where he's like getting the souls flying into him and he's like whining and scared like while it's happening. Like, oh my god, I hated it. I hated everything about the bad guys in this thing except for Peter Fonda, who was great.
Peter Fonda was so good that he was menacing just standing around. Like the fact that the devil just stands around for the movie, but he still had a commanding presence doing it, and you could believe that he was this evil entity was really cool. And I wish that they had, like you said, I wish he had been the main bad guy and they'd leaned into that more.
Why did you even hire Peter Fonda? Like he's a world-class, like Oscar-nominated dude. I think he actually won for Easy Rider, didn't he? He's got an Oscar. I think he won for writing in that, and I think he has an Oscar. We talked about this in Deadfall, I feel like, at some point. But like, why bring that guy in and then hire these terrible actors for the rest of it? I mean, to be fair, if I was casting a movie and I had the choice of potentially getting Wes Bentley coming off of American Beauty and all of that, maybe I would have cast him too. And maybe it's on him. Maybe it was just like, oh, he didn't bring the performance that they were looking for, and like he ended up doing that. But that's your job as a director, is to like rein that guy in and turn him into the character that you're trying to get him to portray, not whatever the hell this was supposed to be. It was just like they just took some petulant teenager, and maybe that's what they were going for, which I guess maybe kind of like the prequel, the Star Wars prequels argument of like Hayden Christensen played a petulant teen the way that he was supposed to be, and actually gave a really good performance, but because he was such an emo little pussy boy, you took it as being like, oh, he's just this little bratty bitch who's just a terrible actor. So maybe it was actually a great performance from Wes Bentley. That it's just so confusing why you would cast him as Blackheart after seeing what he's like in the comics and stuff. Ava Mendes, I didn't hate as much as you guys did. I thought she was cute and perky, and she was Ava Mendes. That's what Ava Mendes is in everything that she's in. And my wife was like, she watched it with me when I was watching through the rewatch, and she was the same way, where it's just like, what the fuck does she even bring to this movie? She's just hot. That's all she is for this movie.
My problem with her wasn't her acting was a little weak, but it was more of like their character adds no value to the plot, to the story. Yeah.
Well, you could argue that with most female characters in comic books, especially prior to the MCU comic book movies. Right. They were just kind of there, and even when they're supposed to be like like a world class scientist, or like Lois Lane is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, but she's terrible at being a journalist in all those movies. But so anyways, her performance didn't bug me all that as much. And then Nic Cage, I actually gave a 6. Because I actually really, I don't know, same kind of thing as Gone in 60 Seconds, where it's like he wasn't over the top and he wasn't, just deadpan. He was present through the whole thing, and I found him to be, cool and kind of charming in his own way, through the whole thing. I actually, one of the things I give him credit for is it didn't feel super cringy when he was around Ava Mendes, even though he's 10 years older than her and they're supposed to be in love from high school or whatever.
He's had a lot of practice.
Yeah.
God damn it, Mitchell. God damn it.
But I actually liked him in the role. He worked his ass off to get those abs through the thing.
You know what? Changed it to 10 now because of those abs.
But I 100% feel the same criticism of like, I thought he would bring more to this. Like, he's been wanting to do this his entire career. I mean, I feel like that was one of the early things from him as an actor, was like, he loved comics and stuff. And, I did read an article somebody wrote about him where they talked about his love of comics, and he was like, I can't really shake that now. As like, everybody just thinks I'm obsessed with comics and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you literally named yourself after Luke Cage.
And you named your son after Superman.
After Kal-El, yeah. I mean,
and you didn't even give him a real name. Yeah. Like, you gave him a made-up alien name after Superman.
And you fought so hard to try to get that Superman movie lit.
Yep.
So we're going to play Superman.
In love with comic books. I mean,
I almost want to go back to a 5 now. But yes, I gave him a 6. But, it was, I thought he was cool, and I thought he did a great job, just kind of being a lovable doofus. through the movie, and he has that he switches back and forth between being kind of a likable dummy to a kind of a serious character throughout the thing. He kind of has those switches where he's like he's conflicted, and he's also he's fighting off this dark energy that's inside of him while trying to be goofy. And that was kind of Nic Cage's idea of the character, was like, well, if the studio is telling us that we got to make this guy likable, here's how we do it, is we make him kind of a lovable doofus who hasn't grown up, who is a kind of a kid at heart through the whole thing, and he's playing around, having fun through the whole thing, but he's haunted by the darkness that's actually following him. So I don't know, he skirts the line between that, so I feel like I think he earned a 6. Yeah. I'm standing by it.
Okay.